Okay, if I followed or forwarded on some information about how to download Logger Pro and some of the information in a separate email, so you should have that. We're going to look at following the instructions to answer the 5 questions on the back. 1, 2, and 3 all follow pretty much the same pattern, so I'm just going to show you the example for putting in the length and the period. Once Logger Pro is started here, you're simply going to enter the length in for each of the data points that you want to put in. And then the period. Remember, the length is going to be the x-axis. Period is going to be the y-axis. And once we have our data points in there, you'll notice that the data points are showing up over here. The instructions then ask you to scale each axis so the origin is 0. So let's look at the scaling first. In other words, right now all the data points are down here. We want to make more efficient use of the graph. Go to Analyze. Go down to where it says Auto Scale. And auto scale from 0. If you auto scale, it won't take into account the 0. In fact, let me show you. If you simply auto scale, you'll notice that the x-axis, it doesn't show you down to 0. The x-axis is something down here. Whereas if you auto scale to 0, now it puts a 0 on your graph. The origin is at 0, 0. And that's really what we're going to want. Once we've done that, we want to see, first of all, does the period depend on the length? And apparently it does. I mean, you could see that there is a slope to it. It's not just a flat line. So we could continue on to analyze it. We're going to see about, we could look at the line that it passes through. So if we swipe it and we go up here to linear fit, see how linear fit shows up when I point to that. You'll see I get a nice straight line. However, it doesn't pass through 0. So there is obviously a very definite relationship, but it doesn't really pass through 0. We're going to use that in a minute. But for right now, let's just go ahead and clean up our graph. So we're going to go to Column Options. I'm sorry, Graph Options. And we need to put some labels in here. So the y-axis is the period. And it's period in seconds. So we're going to go ahead and use that for our graph option there. All that's fine. The other thing we do, you want to change is down here on the x-axis. We're going to want to change that to, we're going to use column options for that to fix that one. And again, here's the column options. We want a column definition. So the x, instead of being x, we're going to want this length. In meters. Or that's actually in centimeters right now. That's fine. For this particular one. Okay. So cleans up the graph. We could put a title on here. Again, if we're going to put a title on here, graph options, I think. We'll go to graph options. We see here graph options. Title of this is length versus period. And we got our title on here. If we want to incorporate this into a Word document, just right-click any place on the graph and hit copy. And then we're going to open up a Word document. And when that opens up, we'll just paste it into our Word document, and then we're ready to, and then you could go ahead and make some comments about it for answering the rest of the question. So we just paste that in there, and here's our graph. Okay, so let's go back to Logger Pro. So anyways, so we've analyzed it, we've labeled it, and we've changed some stuff around, and we get this graph. Question number 5 asks us to see whether it depends on if we can create 2 additional graphs, one with the times, the period squared, and the other one with the length squared. So let's do the period squared. Period is y. So we're going to go to Analyze, Data, and we're going to create a new calculated column. The new calculated column in this case is the period squared. You could label it whatever you want, but we're going to call it period squared. And the short name, we're just going to call this PS. We're going to step down to where it says expression, and what we want to do is we're going to pick up the variable y, and we're going to just square that, raised to the 2nd power, and we're done. And you'll see it's created a new column. Now we want that to show up on here, so we want to change the period in seconds to period squared. That's the y-axis. So we're going to go to the graph options. We're going to go to the axis options, and we want to use period squared as the length, not the y. So we're going to uncheck y. We're going to check period squared, and now you can see we get a little bit different graph. We really should change the title of the graph. So again, if we go to graph options, again the y is now period squared. So we're going to change that as well in seconds. So now that shows up. And now you see when we do a linear graph, it goes almost right through the 0, 0, which is what we're interested in. We really should change the title too. So we'll go back to graph options in the title, and this is the length versus the period squared. And let's do this correct. You really should list the y first and then the x. So we're going to call this period squared versus length. Okay, so we changed the title, and so that looks a little bit better. Now, once again, right-click anywhere on there, and you could copy and paste it into your Word document. Okay, so now you have your next graph in there, and again, you could describe that in the graph. So one more time, back to the graph, and this time what we want to do is we want to go back to using the regular period over here and the length over here. Looks like this is a graph we want, but we're going to do the last one anyway. So we need the length squared on this one. So once again, go back to data. We're going to create a new column. New column this time is the length squared. And we'll call this LS. And down here we're going to look for the function, the length, which is our x, and we're going to square that. And we're done. And we just created a new column. Now that's the length squared. Again, we're going to change to get rid of this line. And now we go to graph options. And again, the axis options. This time we want the x, instead of be the length, we want it to be the length squared. And we're going to change the y back to the regular y. And we see, once again, here our graph, the line does not pass through 0. Again, we really should change the title of this graph to the length squared. So we're going to have period versus length squared. Done. And again, right click and copy and paste. Here we can change the size of these if we want to. So if we decide we don't need, but now you just enter a Word document. Okay, so I think that's it. Any questions? Send me an email or give me a call, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.